when I was 16. By the time I was born, he was a middle-grade civil servant, a manager of staff in the Edinburgh General Post Office, a stable and trusted official. My father moved to Edinburgh, a city of politics, law and services, in 1909, but all his life remained a child of the Industrial Revolution, full of vivid memories of coal, smoke, smog and steam power, of great mill engines and railway locomotives and the Manchester Ship Canal. It is hard to explain to young people born in countries that have almost forgotten heavy manufacturing just how awe-inspiring the very processes that shaped our lives could be. For my father, and for me later, great machines were not fearful or distressing, but things to be celebrated, as fascinating as the natural world, creatures made by men. By the time I was able to notice such things, he was part of a reading circle of 15 or so, men and women, who would visit each other's houses and read papers on such topics as the novels of Arnold Bennett, which my father devoured as the nearest thing he could find to a literature of his boyhood world, or the Edinburgh of Sir Walter Scott. My father was also the regional editor of the Journal of the Institution of Post Office Electrical Engineers, to which he contributed local news, and like all dedicated believers in improvement and discovery, he read H.G. Wells. He had a little library of such books. On his shelves I remember Oliver and Boyd's Edinburgh Almanac from the 1830s, some books in popular science, and Samuel Smiles' Lives of the Engineers. I also remember my father's copy of Hendrik Willem van Loon's The Story of Mankind, which came out in 1931. It was an inspiring narrative of achievement and progress, and as a child I absorbed its tale of optimism and invention, each new breakthrough seeming to promise more speed and ease and excitement. One of the most intense events of my childhood was finding the secret chart of the great discoveries hidden inside the decorative dust jacket of Van Loon's book. I was convinced there were thousands of readers who had never looked at the back of the jacket, and that this wonderful branching tree of human ingenuity was for me alone. My first memory of a world beyond my infant needs was not of an animal or a park, but of a strange mechanical assembly. One of my father's frequent destinations on those walks beside the sea was the Joppa tram terminus, which was situated where the historic main road from Edinburgh to London touched the Firth of Forth. On one of these walks, when I was a very small child, we rounded the corner of Di Rollo's ice cream parlour and found Joppa Road blocked by a huge barricade of tramcars, a wall of maroon and white metal. Each tram was an elegant two-storied coach house with delicate-looking wooden frames surrounding the windows, and each was two-headed, its end windows arranged in a five-sided prism. The trams had open platforms at each end from which right-angled stairs disappeared tantalizingly into the open upper decks. They were waiting to take the crowds coming from a race meeting in nearby Musselburgh back into Edinburgh. I stared at this herd of machines. I didn't know there were so many trams in the world. Joppa was unfortunately, for my awakening fascination for vehicles that ran on rails, a tram haven. It was a terminus on one of the last cable tram systems in the world, its cars attached to their bases by ropes of steel wire up to 5 miles long, running in a conduit between the rails, the cables paid out by big stationary steam engines in the depots. Soon after the revelation of the massed tramcars, my father took me to see an oily trench below the surface of the roadway at the Joppa terminus. This chamber was the cable pit, and in it was a large flanged wheel round which a steel hawser revolved, pulling in the car from Portobello, the nearest suburb to the west. Every few minutes a tram would arrive, detach itself from the eastbound cable, and after gripping the westbound cable, head back to Edinburgh at a stately 12 miles an hour. There was something infinitely reassuring in the predictability of this system. The heavy double-deck trams drawn through the streets, moving widely but never randomly around the town, cruising steadily through the mill of bicycles, horse-drawn delivery wagons and pedestrians. It was as though the trams laid down an orderly grid on the chaotic life of the city. The antiquated cable vehicles gave way, soon after I became aware of them, to electric trams. When I was about 4, I was with my mother on the promenade when she pointed out what she told me was the first electric tram heading for Edinburgh. The big steam engine in the local depot shuddered to a halt late at night about a month later. My father told me about it the following day. I could tell that to him it was a solemn moment, the end of something.